Good evening, everybody. I know we want to talk because that's all I want to do. All these people that I see here who've had memories of Schram Hall, so many stories and so much to talk about. But I want to welcome you all here. My name is Leann Mackey, and I'm one on the board of the Bailey's Harbor Historical Society. And it's my pleasure to introduce this program tonight. I want to first of all thank Leann Despotes because she's put in a lot of time to get this program together, and she's done some wonderful interviews, and I'm so looking forward to seeing what she's put together. I also look in this audience and I see all the Schram family and all the progeny from the beginning, and I'm so glad you could come tonight. It's so much fun when you have the families here that have the stories and can share those stories with us. So I'm so glad you could make it. And for everybody else who's a visitor, and for all those people who have ties to Bailey's Harbor, we all have our memories of the Schram Hall. I have the Frontier shirt on tonight. I was happy that Joni shared that with me because that way I could, those were the 70s as I recall, and it was a good time down there, and I know you have your own memories. It's one of the distinctive landmarks in Bailey's Harbor. So without further ado, there's only one business note I'd like to add. When you leave tonight, if you just pick your chair up and bring it towards the back, that will expedite things. And also, I would like to present the slate of the board for the Historical Society, and I would like them to just, they're in the back. For this year's not officers, but who are on the board, there are 7 people actually, and Leann Despotes, Roy Cole, Kristen Pyle, Susie Baldry, Mary Moran, Steve Hay. Have I missed anyone? And myself. I just at this time, because as a matter of protocol, I have to ask if there are any nominations from the floor. Is there anyone that has a great ambition to be on the board? We would welcome you with open arms. We would love to have you. And I would invite you, any of you who are interested in history and keeping the past alive for Bailey's Harbor, we would love to have you. Our next board meeting is July 28th, and it's at 4:30, and it's in the town hall. And if any of you would like to come and just see what the board does and what we're about, we welcome you with open arms. So if there's no nominations from the floor, that is the slate for the board for the coming year. Thank you. I look forward to this program. I know you do too. And so without further ado, Leann Despotes, if you'd like to come forward.
Now, is everything clear? We don't need to turn lights off, or this? I don't know. Oh, yeah, we'll see. I'm just seeing if I can see. Yes, I can see. Okay. Before I start, I have to say thanks. There were so many people who helped me get this going, helped me get material, encouraged me to roam around. Karen Byrne let me roam around the fish market there and take pictures of odd corners and what have you. She was great. And she she put me together with Shirley Schloss, who provided a lot of the graphics that you'll see in our presentation. So I want to thank Karen. I definitely want to thank Shirley, and also for the privilege of now knowing her, and Arlene Dykstra-Lundquist. I got secondhand information, I think, from Jean and June Schram through Mary Ann. Gardy and Margaret Orsted donated their wedding poster for viewing and their wedding picture, their dance poster. And also, we had a chance to talk, so I got some insight. Joni Nelson was very generous, Lauren and Annie Pyle, Kristen Pyle, Marianne Johnson, and anybody who shared random memories. I mean, that helped a lot, too. Also, Lucille Dykstra, who's no longer with us, but left us a wonderful memoir of her younger days, which I will use. And Ruby Vakes-Toft, who is here tonight, And she also very thoughtfully wrote her reminiscences of her childhood, and she will be hearing her words a little bit later tonight, too. So now we get to the technical part. Let's hope it works. Oops, it worked too fast. Now, this may be hard to see the details on. It is the oldest picture I could find of the Schram Hall. I'm guessing it was in 1908 when it was built. There is no porch cover, you can tell, over the hall doors. There are wide steps on the southern building. That was the original tavern, and I think those steps led up into the tavern. And then there's that little strange building attached to the south side, too, which everybody who looks at it says, I don't know what it is. I'm wondering, could it have been like a men's room or something like that? I don't know. So that's, I think, just very, very freshly built. This, I think, was taken when August Schram felt he had everything just right. This is a professional photograph by Olga Olson, who had her studio in town where the McCardle House is now. And you can see it just looks spruce. The telephone pole or telegraph pole, whichever it is standing up straight. You can see the barn at the back. The cover over the front porch of the bar room and all that sort of thing. It looks really great. Let me just get to a little bit bigger. Where do I have to set? Oops, nope, there. This is the same picture, just a little bit bigger. And note the barn in the back. It has a gabled roof. Okay, here comes the real challenge. I'll try to use the pointer. I got it, now if I can just use it. This thing is just ridiculously difficult. Okay, forget the pointer. I can't control it. I practiced at home, it did no good. The barn is a large building in the back, and you can see that square opening there. Kind of make a mental note of it, because later, in the next picture, you'll see some changes that took place with that. And there's a shed back there, too. And in the front, those little pillars standing there, those are horse tie-ups. Oops. There's probably a name for horse tie-ups, I just don't happen to know what it is. This is the barn in 1956, a picture of Jack Wassa back there. And you see that little opening is still there, the little square door under the big haymow door. So I think they put a second story on that barn, probably, to get more hay and stuff. It's gone now. I don't know when they tore it down. Nobody seemed to remember. But it was pretty big. And of course, if it were there now, we wouldn't have the view over the water when we have dinner, so. This picture I included because I just thought it was the greatest picture. August started his business really as a livery, from what I understand. That was the first thing that he started. And it continued. I was talking to a friend not long ago, and he said he's not that much older than me, and he said he certainly remembers horses being kept there, when he was younger. And I just love this picture. I mean, I would want to be a horse wrangler that could just take 8 horses and get them to stand in a semicircle like that. I mean, that is so cool. And this is right behind the dance hall. And the barn would be like, over here. Angie. This is a picture of Angie in her garden. And the reason I have it here is that just north of the dance hall, there was an ice house, which makes perfect sense because they had beer in there and then later ice cream and all sorts of things that had to be kept cold. So it made sense to have your own ice house and a ready supply of ice. And when the ice house got torn down, it was right where she's standing, she was very happy because she was an avid gardener and didn't have a very big garden, but with that ice house gone, the sky was the limit. Now, I'm showing you this shot from the 1980s, because it was the best picture I had showing the galvanized steel siding on the building. And that's something, I didn't know I missed it until I looked at this picture. I thought, I remember that. And this is just a great representation of it. It was very popular around the turn of the 20th century. It had lots of things going for it. It was durable. It was kind of fireproof. It wasn't expensive. And when you put it up, they were big sheets. So the amount of nailing work that had to be done was much, much less than if you had covered with clapboards. So it was a pretty practical solution. Okay, let me get to I know I'll forget something if I don't keep up with myself. If you would like to see what that metal looked like or looks like, and you walk around and look up, the back of the false front still shows it. Because there was no need to cover it there because it wasn't performing any insulating job. The burns, yeah. Oops, wrong direction.
Is that a famous next to, I think that's Nick Greer in the picture? That is Nick Greer. Look behind you. Yes.
It's a pillory, I think. Okay. Okay. Now, this is that back shed that sort of stood, I think, in front of the barn. It is really ramshackle today. And it's a problem for the current owners because they can't tear it down and rebuild because of zoning. It's too close to the lot line, so they wouldn't be allowed to rebuild. And if they rebuilt, then they'd ruin the view that they get from the restaurant. So they use it for storage, but it's just one of those troublesome little things. If you look closely, I guess you'd almost have to jump up on the stage to see it. But in the lower picture, on those white door frames, there are white big rings that, again, I think were used to tie up horses, and they remain. Has anybody come up with the name of horse tie-up that would be more technical? Hitching. I like that. I knew it was something I'd heard of. This is the back of the dance hall now. The upper story has been turned into living quarters. On the first story, that big square left-hand window, that's where the bandstand was. And then they put these door-sized windows also for the view. And I was talking to Gardy Orsted yesterday, and he said that his grandmother had said that August often talked about putting rooms in that second story, but he didn't have the opportunity to do it. Oh, here's a good one. Here's Arlene on the bandstand, Arlene Dykstra then, and Lundquist now. I just love this picture. I knew her then because she was like a cool teenage girl and I was a little troublesome child. But I guess she was trying out her toe shoes. But this shows the bandstand, and she was explaining to me too that it wasn't like a real stage. You didn't have the entrance and exit and all that. It was just a bandstand. But they used it for everything, I think, over the years. Oh, and that little funny top, that fuzzy stuff along the top of the border, that I think was a banner that was cut in paper that was like in shreds. So then when the wind blew, it kind of, made a kind of rippling effect, if there was any breeze to be had. Oops. I know this can't be right. Oh, yes, I can. This can so be right. Here's the bar originally, August on the left and a bartender on the right. The same bar is in there today. You might want to notice that little pediment on top, carved. These interior shots from this period are notoriously difficult, but we do what we can. It might be interesting to know that I was looking in the Old Town records, and he first got his liquor license in 1904 when he had the original bar at the cost of $100 per year. A lot of money, right? Well, in 1912, when he got his liquor license, it had gone up to $350 a year. And if you really want to be wowed, I looked in the National Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they equate $100 in 1915 with $2,200 today. So those must have sold a lot of those nickel beers. Amazing. But I'm assuming those records, are all correct. I was astonished. Okay, now back to the bar. Well, while I was taking pictures in there, of course, I was sitting at the bar, and I couldn't help but notice that the original label on the back bar remains. It's from the Brunswick Balke Colander Company, and that's the same Brunswick company that's still a big company on the market today. They started making pool tables, switched over to bar fixtures, and when these three companies merged, they became the largest producer of bar fixtures in the world. 95% of all bar fixtures were made by them. They were handcrafted in Iowa, hand-carved by German craftsmen, shipped all over the country and the world. And what I thought was really interesting was they found ways to crate them so they'd be in small enough pieces so that they could go anywhere. Sometimes they had to go by ox cart, in new towns in the West just opening up. And so they had a way of doing it so that when it got to the destination, you could take it out of the crates and, bang, 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 put it together, and you had a back bar and a front bar. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I've read that there's only about 150 working or used, today, still being used today. And I saw, when I was reading about it, they said the fancy style ones, this one is kind of a plain style, but the really ornate bars would auction for as much as $50,000 a bar nowadays. And this is the current bar at the Harbor Fish Market and Grill. The mirror got damaged, so the Burns got some strips of beveled glass and set it in. It's really very pretty. And the pediment you can see is gone on top. But everything else is there. The little shelves in front of the mirrors are there, the drawers are there, the doors are there, everything is there, just like it was. And if you really strain yourself very, very hard, you can see the label on the front bar, but you really can't read it. I guess too many people rubbing against it, over the years. And the Burns have, they found somebody to craft an extension that's a big U-shaped bar. It keeps going. And the guy who did it did such a great job, you can hardly tell where one begins and the other one ends. It really, really looks nice. Yes?
To the right of that picture, is the beer cooler still there, or is it gone?
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember. Maybe we'll have to just go down there and see. Sure. Oops. Either it won't go or it goes too fast. Now this, I apologize for these pictures, but I'm not very accomplished. This shows the tin ceiling. On the left, it's been painted dark green, and dark green does not show nuances too well. But this is a coved tin ceiling. Again, very popular in that era. They were fireproof, like the siding, easier to put up than fancy plaster. And they just added kind of a delightful design element to businesses and homes. And when the technology was developed and the transportation was there, people just love them. You see them all over, but almost only in North America for some reason. Never spread around much. It gave people a chance, too, to emulate the wealthy, sculpted plaster ceilings, and they like that. That little white smudge on the right-hand picture, well, you take my word for it, is pointing to the bullet hole in the ceiling. That's pretty famous. And Joan told me the story of that, Joni Nelson. She said that there was this really pesky fly, and nobody could get, you know how sometimes you just can't get the fly? And nobody could get it, and they kept going after the fly, and the fly was winning. And so just in a moment of silliness, Lanny reached around behind him, and there was a gun there, and shot a hole in the ceiling. And I never did hear whether the fly made it or not. I never did hear that. The building also has the original hardwood floors, which have had, some wear, some patching and so forth, but the Byrnes are trying to retain them as long as they can. Now that we've talked about the building, the scene is set, the barns, the sheds, the ice houses, the bar, the ceiling, all of that stuff. Let's just take a look at some of the people who live there and some of the activities that went on in town. This is the Martin Schram family. August is standing near the left-hand fence porch pole. His older brother, John, is at the right hand, and they were the two oldest. Martin Schram was a very successful farmer on Double E in the Polish settlement. He was also a very generous man. He donated to the Catholic Church, the school. But August, I get this feeling, had a little entrepreneurial spirit within him. I think he was a guy that had big ideas, at least from what I've researched. And this is the Kutchmark family, Samuel Kutchmark. The mother is Theodora Zach, and they had 6 children. And Martha Kutchmark is, I believe, the third one in the back row. So we have that, and then their wedding. This is the formal wedding picture for Martha and August. She was about 16 years old. He was about 28. And this occurred in June of 1909. Now, just stop and think a minute. In 1909, let me see, he was born in 1881, so that makes him like 28 years old. And at 28 years old, he has started this livery business. He has started a tavern. He built that dance hall. I think it's amazing myself. But this is even more amazing. Well, oops. This is the wedding party. Look at that. I mean, wouldn't it just be fun to be there? Well, and when I first was looking at this picture, I thought, how could Bailey's Harbor, this little hamlet, have a wedding party like this? I mean, it just seemed gigantic. And then I started thinking, well, there's the Schram family, the Kutchmark family, the Zach family, and then I thought, well, the families in Polish settlement. So this was probably just their intimate family and a few close friends. That's what I'm thinking. But I thought I just think that's a wonderful picture. Well, I'll bet, I haven't seen the signature folder or anything, but I will bet that was done by Olga Olson. It's just too well done, I think, to be a snapshot. But yeah, I agree with you. It's great for so many people. Here's coming one of my favorites, if I can just get it to flip. This is Andrew Zach, John Schram, and August Schram, a trio. And I left the ragged edge on because I like that too. But I mean, I look at them and I just think, everybody's face was so stern in those days, and they're just looking so serious. I mean, I hope their music was a little bit more lively, a little more lively than their expressions. And I think that was professionally done too. They're wearing boutonnieres and all. I just wonder, would that have ever been taken like at that wedding? It looks old enough. I don't know. But it's great, isn't it? Oh, now here, this is the real artifact. I asked Joni Nelson, to bring anything she had, and she unfortunately had lost she had a lot of stuff, but it got lost in a fire. But she did have, I couldn't believe it. I opened this little plastic bag, and here's an actual Schram dance hall ticket. I just think I like stuff like that. I feel like I'm, there. So he could hold dances now. He had this great dance hall, and nothing stopped him. He also got an amusement company in Sturgeon Bay to show movies. So in the Bailey's Harbor News, I just picked, random few things. In 1915, in the Advocate, be sure to take in the dance, which will be given at Schram's Hall Thursday, May 13th. Good music has been secured for the occasion. Supper will be served at Old Homestead Inn. The proceeds going to the baseball club. Boost the club. And I sure wish I knew where the Homestead Inn was. But maybe it was Martha's Kitchen, could be. Be sure to attend the Big Time at Schram's, Friday, June 11th. Music by Welter's Orchestra. Dance and Moving Picture Show at Schram's Hall next Wednesday, June 30th. Taking a good time, and on, it went every week. When you look through the Advocate, you'd find some mention of some excitement that was going on there. Now, Lucille Schram Dykstra wrote in 2000, she's describing the building here. And you remember there's that first building and then the hall. And in between, you see a door there. I always call it the middle door. And there's like a hallway connecting those two buildings that goes from the front all the way to the back. And she's describing this hallway. She says, we had a long hallway with doors to the outside on each end. Later, when we got electricity, we made a public bathroom at one end of the hallway, and there was a door that led into the dance hall. A little further on was a door that led into the tavern. On the right was a room where there was a square opening, which is where movie tickets were sold. On the left side was a room we called the waiting room. The wives would wait for their husbands there, because in those days, wives would never enter a tavern or a saloon. And she also said that in the tavern was a huge icebox where her dad and then Jack Wasserbeck would keep the beer and big cakes of ice to keep it cold. And she also told how when the bands came in from out of town, her Martha would give them dinner, then they'd play, then they'd have a midnight snack, then they'd go to bed upstairs, then they'd get up and have breakfast, and then they'd go. So it would seem almost unnecessary to pay them after all that. Well, it seemed like business was booming, everybody was pitching in, and then in 1918, tragedy struck this family. August was not yet 37 years old, and he died suddenly and unexpectedly at Eglin Hospital in Sturgeon Bay. And in his obituary, it describes that he had a badly infected tooth. And the Saturday before he died, he went and had it extracted, but apparently, it was too late, and the poison had gone all through his system. He went back to the hospital, it says in the obituary, by auto, just so you know that it was considered serious. He got there, he was in bed, but the doctor was on a house call and didn't get back in time, and he died before the doctor got back to the hospital, just like that. Here today, gone tomorrow. Not even 37. I just found that so sad. So that leads us to this. So here's Martha. She's about 24 years old, 4 children. Leann, the oldest, was 8, and little Dorothy was about 3 at the time that August died. And I'm pretty well assuming this was taken after he died, because I'm sure he would have been in the picture if that weren't the case. So here she is, 24-year-old widow, 4 children, and Angie, when she was just a tot, had some sort of an accident that really destroyed her left hip, I think it was. And she, although she received every kind of treatment that they could get for her, She was never able to operate without wearing a very heavy brace on her leg. She was undauntable, I think, but I know that it caused her discomfort, and you could tell, walking was very difficult for her. But I never saw her without a smile on her face, so she had a wonderful spirit. But Martha had also, a disabled child, and then all these other things to deal with. A livery, a tavern, a dance hall. Well, as I was digging around through town records, I found that in 1918, Jim Cooney took out a liquor license. And I also found that there was an agreement of lease between Martha Schram and Jim Cooney. So I'm thinking that for that year she rented the enterprise, and that maybe gave her a little time to, get herself together and so forth and so on. But it was just for that 1 year. And now if we only had some doom and gloom, ominous music to play in the background, we would, because in 1919, the Volstead Act was passed and national prohibition became the law of the land. So now she has 4 children, a livery, a dance hall, a tavern, and she can't sell anything that's alcoholic. So I think they managed. This was open. Unlike so many places, this stayed open through that whole time. A lot of places closed down. So these challenges were met. Actually, in 1920, soon after this, Martha married Jack Wasserbeck. He's probably somebody that a lot of us knew. I certainly knew who he was. And from then on, he ran the business end of it. And just knowing Martha and knowing what I've heard about Martha, I'm sure she was the power behind that throne. She was stern, and she liked to take charge. A year after that, in 1921, they had one son, Lloyd, and I thought this was sort of a sweet picture of him standing on one of the hitching posts, we'll call it, even if it's not a post. And when you look behind him, you can see the old Frank Schall house, which is now real estate. It's on the corner of Howard and 57. So it became Jack's Tavern. And this is the lovely Arlene Dykstra making another appearance on our silver screen here. So it was called Jack's Tavern. It was called Wasserbeck's Hall. But over the years, you will note that people called it either thing. Whatever they, sounded right to them, that's what they called it. If they were used to calling it Schram's, they called it Schram's until 1950. And if they were used to calling it Wasserbeck's, that's what they called it. Now. This is Jack with some customers. I don't know when it was taken. He's the one not wearing the hat. And the guy wearing the hat seems inordinately proud of his pint of liquor. I guess that's a photo moment. I don't know. One thing that did plague me, though, when I was trying to find this out, I called the Tavern League of Wisconsin, and I talked to so many people who were older. I said, what did they do during Prohibition? Because I knew that there were speakeasies, and things like that. But, what did your average Joe do? And some people had real creative solutions. Some places were soft drink saloons. Some places, I think, became more like restaurants, But they were very busy at Wasserbeck's Schram's Hall. I did get in an article from the Tavern League, this one lady sent it to me, she was really nice. It told the story of Tom Nelson in Washington Island and how he got a pharmacist's license, which allowed him to sell bitters legally. And so that's why when you go over there and you want to become an honorary islander, you have to drink bitters. And that's where I think that all came from, because that was sold as sort of like a stomachic to help your digestion and all that. And he swore he drank a pint of it a day and owed his happy long life to it. But regardless of Prohibition here, Activities continued apace. Dances continued with music provided by Cy Malberg's orchestra, the 5 Shinny performers. The Walter Amusement Company brought double features on Sunday evenings, featuring movies as Secondhand Rose, The Three-Word Brand, and Touchdown. When the art school was busy in Frogtown, they were apparently always thinking of something to do. They put on plays, they had dances, they painted paintings to give out as prizes. They were just, I'm sure they were soldiers just, out of World War I and probably having the time of their lives being in this beautiful area studying their art. So there was always something in the Advocate in those days talking about it. And at one of the dances, a Mr. Betcher won the Best Waltzer Prize. And I'm going to assume that that's Bill Betcher's dad, Bernard, because I think he would have been just about the right age for that. I didn't know him to be a waltzer, but it could be. Now, Ruby Vakes-Tuft recalls her experience, and this is a little excerpt from a 1992 recollection of hers. I had no idea she was going to be attending tonight, but I just couldn't be more delighted. She said, "Sunday night was movie night at Wassabeck's Hall. The silent pictures, run by Art Brungraber of Jacksonport, would be accompanied by a pianist at first. Sometimes Art would play his accordion as accompaniment, and as a picture accelerated, his accordion music would too. The main feature was followed by one act of a thriller that left one on the edge of the hard bench, knowing one had to be back next Sunday to see it resolved, and then only to find another cliffhanger. Besides the movies, the hall was used for basketball practice, dances. Once in the summer, a professional couple came, and as we watched spellbound, they glided effortlessly around the floor in a dazzling display of dancing. Sometimes a patent medicine show would come to this hall, and besides selling elixir, they would sell boxed candy with prizes. Sometimes there was a contest with votes in the candy boxes, and once a Charleston dance contest was held." That's the end of my quote from Ruby. Slot machines were also featured at the hall. And I don't know if you all read Looking Back in the Advocate, that's the main thing I read. Just this last week, they said that there was an order through the county that all slot machines would be taken out of any businesses. And that was in 1936. And now I've talked to an awful lot of people who swear to me that there were slot machines long after 1936. So just as during Prohibition, they did a survey to see which sheriffs in Wisconsin were cooperating, with the Volstead Act. And they found that a lot of them weren't cooperative, and Door County Sheriff was one of those sheriffs that were not cooperative. So maybe the sheriff wasn't so cooperative over slot machines either, I don't know. Now this, oh, I almost missed Jack. This is Jack that I knew when I was growing up. And I think it's funny because I was looking at this with a close friend of mine, and we both simultaneously said, that's how I remember Jack. So very quiet, sort of placid man, I think. Nice. And now here, oh. Come on. How about that? I looked high and low to find a poster of an actual movie that they showed at Wassabeck's Hall, and I found this one. With Reginald Denny in the Kentucky Derby. And just remembering what Ruby Vakes-Tuft said, these are the little liner notes that went with this. "There's dirty work afoot in old Kentucky when a rival decides his horse will have a better chance of winning if the son of the owner isn't around. So he has him shanghaied into a tramp freighter and gets the jockey in his debt through a crooked gambling game. Airplanes, shipwrecks, sea storms, kidnapping, frame-ups, and much skullduggery are afoot." Now this specimen here is Spike Kelly, professional boxer. I could not believe I found this picture, but sometimes you just type in the right words, things pop up just what you want. On July 4th, in 1923, they had a big celebration in town. They were having the most fluent speakers in the area and a baby contest and all sorts of things. And this was all being sponsored by the athletic club. And they had 4 bouts of boxing at the hall. And they don't talk about the first 3. They were, I guess, they were like the preliminary things. But Spike Kelly of the Stockyards, this is the guy, was going to box Kid Duncan. And thanks to the sports fans of the world, you can find anything out about sports. He boxed from about 1910 to 1918 professionally, Spike here, and he mostly won. He won more than he lost. And Kid Duncan, the one that I found anyway, boxed exactly 1 round, was KO'd. So if any of you want fame, you just get in a professional boxing ring, box 1 round, and you're going to be a statistic. So we can look you up forever. Now, here's Martha in her beginning ice cream parlor. I don't think that apron was radioactive. I guess it was just, I think it's just the light, the poor indoor photography like in the bar. And you can see she went all out. She had her Japanese lantern, her crepe paper, and cute little ice cream tables and chairs, which were still there when I used to go there. There's a phonograph in the back left corner, if you can kind of see it. And now, I will say, when I was a child, this would be in the 50s, she had 2 shiny varnished booths on the right-hand side of the room, the same little chairs and tables, and there was a tall counter with white marble on it, and behind that would be the ice cream, where she would serve the ice cream. I think there was a mirror behind that. It was kind of like a back bar. And there were also magazines, and there was a counter with candies inside of it. So it was a lot more, it developed a lot over the years. And it was one of my favorite places to go. My favorite ice cream dish, the 3 Graces. This is not adulterated with a healthy banana. It's 3 scoops of ice cream with 3 different toppings, nuts, I think a cherry on top. It was just fantastic. The banana splits were good too, but you had to deal with that banana. I've thought about that. I'm guessing it might have been 35 cents. 25, you think? Because I thought the banana splits were 25. Do you remember, Arlene? Well, until that day in about 1955 when I went there and it was 6 cents. So worst day of my childhood, practically. It's terrible. Now, this building, I don't know if it's in the 20s or the 30s here. I just don't know enough about these antique cars in the background to tell you. But I put it there because I wanted to end up the 1920s quickly. Having to deal with Prohibition over the decade, I'm sure for the family was hard enough. But in 1928, the youngest child from August Schram died suddenly at home. Little Dorothy died at the age of 13. And nobody seems quite sure. It could have been so many things in those days. You just didn't have antibiotics or access, to the stuff we have today. So that was another tragedy for Martha. And then, of course, in October of 1929, the stock market crashed, the banks failed. And they lost money in that. And it was a good many years before they did anything that wasn't on a cash basis. They had a safe in their bedroom, and the money went in there, and the money came out of there. And then eventually, I think they returned, to the world of finance and so forth, banks and all. But they weren't the only people to feel that way, that's for sure. Oop. I hate that when that happens. Well, during this time, even though the 20s, were maybe a difficult decade, Jack and Martha's son Lloyd was growing up. And this is a picture of him in his University of Wisconsin football jersey. So handsome. And I can remember my mom and my uncle talking about him, and it was always like, it was like you expected little birds to be singing. I mean, he was just so well thought of, just really, really well thought of. Very gifted athlete. He lettered 4 times at the University of Wisconsin. He played in the Rose Bowl, and he was drafted by the Packers. But before he could play, he was drafted by Uncle Sam. So this was in the early 40s, and he served in the Philippines. He caught malaria. He did survive, though. He came home and played for the Chicago Rockets. It was a short-lived team in Chicago. And then after that, he was married. I believe he had a daughter, and he probably wanted to settle down. And so he was laying power lines in middle Wisconsin. And he was staying in Ripon, at the Ripon Hotel. In 1949, there was a terrible hotel fire. And he, along with 5 other people, was lost in that fire. So, it was devastating for Martha and Jack. I just can't even imagine, what that kind of news would be like. And still around that time, here are the surviving Schram children with Arlene. That's Arlene Dykstra, the little girl, her mom Lucille, Angie Schram, Martha Wasserbeck, and Leann Schram, who was in the Coast Guard. Oh, and I had to put this picture in because it was Angie, and I just love this picture. I remember this. I can see her sitting at the telephone office, clicking the number and pulling the little snake out, putting it in and saying, "Number, please." Whenever we heard the fire siren, you just pick up your phone and say, "Where's the fire?" And they'd tell you where. It's true. It's Mayberry, but it's true. Oop. I'm going to spank this thing when I get home, I think. Another thing that went on, especially I think maybe more in the 40s and 50s, a little bit in the 60s, was the wedding dance. And here's Shirley Schloss and Lucille Dykstra holding up Jane DeHaas and Sebastian Zach's wedding dance poster. And this wasn't like when you get married, you have dinner, and you have a reception. This was completely separate. You would have these posters up all over for weeks, so you get as many people to come to the wedding dance as possible. They paid a small admission, in this case 50 cents. In the poster I have showing over there, that was Margaret and Gardy Orsted's wedding dance. That was only 15 cents in 1941. That one was at Schram's Hall. This one's at Wasserbeck's Hall. Like I said, just depended. And that money, they let you use the hall, but the money would sort of defray the cost of the band. And I'm guessing if there was money left over, if it was a huge crowd, maybe the bride and groom would get any excess. I don't know. But those were big events. I can remember going to 1 or 2. They just kind of disappeared. You just don't see them anymore. But it was a rare week that you didn't see some colored, poster bill somewhere. Fernwood Garden was a big place when I was that age. They would have them. They were very popular. Oh, and when they had them, Martha would make hamburgers and hot dogs, and she'd sell ice cream because people would get hungry. You're dancing, and they would be drinking beer, and then she would also make a little extra by doing that. And this is Arlene again. In 1956, she was a bridesmaid, and she told me that was a wedding that did have the wedding dance at the dance hall. And this lets you see, sort of the style of clothes then, but also this is the inside of the house. You see the little old sewing machine to the right of the door and a little plant stand on the other side. Just sort of how things looked then. Whose wedding was it, Arlene? Okay, it could have been Beatty and Kenny Charnetsky. Dale Orsted, Marie Mann. Oh, okay. That was in the kitchen, right. It looks, that's the table there on the left, I think. Okay. And this is a Christmas picture of Jack and Martha as they're getting older. This is in that little bay window, I think, in the living room. And, oh, I have to share this. I was digging around through my own old stuff, and when I was working on this, and didn't I find a picture exactly like this, only it has Arlene and Lucille on it. Okay, well, after Jack and Martha passed away in 1963, within a month of each other, it's pretty bad, but I didn't print it. I'm just trying to show you history. The building was sold to Harold and Tootie Keno, Dolores, her actual name is, but everybody calls her Tootie. And they had it for a couple of years and then leased it to Lanny and Joni Nelson. Now, you notice they call it the Frontier Bar and Restaurant, kind of picking up on that boomtown architecture and the thing over the front door with the posts and all that. It looks frontierish. And so Joni and Lanny took that like a step further. And they, you can see here there's wagon wheels standing around. It's got a big Frontier Bar sign there. And you can also tell, although this isn't the best picture to see it on, the Red Geranium shop has started. There's that sign there that is the original Red Geranium sign in the ice cream parlor. There, this is better. And here's that picture we saw before with the little pillory behind the man who's walking. It looks like the Titan Motorcycle Club had to wet their whistle that day, I'm guessing. And if you look, there's lots of little details. There's the wagon wheels, the pillory, little lanterns, hanging around the top. And the Red Geranium next door was rented to Mildred Armato, who was an artist up here. She did wonderful prints, and she had also a gift shop in there. I love this picture, too. I love everything where I recognize people. This is Lanny Nelson behind the bar with the hat on. Behind him, also behind the bar, is Jolene Visty Gardner. The man in the foreground is Harold Keno, who was just previous owner. And just behind him is Jolene's dad, Les Visty. So this was a place, people just would come and have a good time and share a beer, and everybody knew everybody. It was a very community place. And they continue the tradition of dances and good times, and I have to admit I may have spent an evening or two there myself. And it's very difficult to see on these black and white pictures, but all on the walls they had like longhorn steer horns and old antique bottles and axes and tools and anything frontierish, anything to make it seem kind of Old West. And that's, of course, one of the things that made it fun. Now you might say to yourself, has she made an error? You probably know Ray Kroc is the founder of the McDonald's restaurants. And Joni was telling me that one of her favorite memories, unusual memories, is that they used to stop in at the Frontier every summer. They used to vacation up here, and they loved it because it was quaint and fun, and everybody was friendly. So when she told me that, I had to think of somehow to illustrate that. So this is my way that I chose. And she said he was real generous, and if he saw somebody who was a little bit short or something like that, he might treat them. And he was she said they were just really, really nice, down-to-earth people. Now here's the original Red Geranium. Very rustic, rough wood, nothing finished. It was very southwestern. It had a real southwestern feel to it, just kind of like the frontier thing, you know. And this part was a gift shop. It had a little stove there and whatever. And there's a door that I think you can see at the back. Don't know who's standing in the door. But in there is mostly where Mildred had her prints and pictures and so forth and so on. And she had a lot of stuff back there, a lot of very nice stuff. In fact, I think I bought a woodcut from her. She made some real beautiful things. And now you can still find the red geranium, but it's now in the old Tuft House, just a little bit south on the other side of the street. Oop, rats. Come on. There. Okay, after Joan and Lanny had made their mark on the entertainment history of Bailey's Harbor, they sold to a man named Peter Charles. He made some, I guess, significant changes. I believe he put the porch on the building that we have now and so forth. And he had in his restaurant alcoves all over it with these gorgeous exotic birds in them. When you went in to dine, you would just go past and there'd be like a glass window, and behind it would be like a giant parrot or something like that. And I believe he had sort of a Tex-Mex kind of cuisine leaned toward that as far as I can recall. And so these are just pictures. I just plucked them off cyberspace, but I had to put something. So we couldn't find any other, anything else. And then eventually he sold it after several years. He sold it to the Bernts, and it's now the Harbor Fish Market and Grill. They decided to go with more of an upscale restaurant that specializes in fish and seafood. They have lobster boils weekly, I believe, during the summer, and they've done their own, decorating, redecorating, and so forth. It's real pretty, lots of flowers in the front. And they were, I have to say, very generous with letting me wander around outside, inside, and wherever. Now here's that, remember when Lucille was talking about that big hallway that with all the doors off of it and the ticket booth and all that? That was here. And you can see that door is kind of sort of there. They didn't want to remove the doorway, but they wanted it covered. So they've tried to, just like with the siding, they didn't take the galvanized off. So if there was ever a way to restore, you could still have the original stuff there, which I think it's a challenge to do that sort of thing, but they do try. And I remember that middle door. If you went in there, you could either go to the ice cream parlor or something. I think we used to go to the bathroom there. I don't know. It's too long. Here's the current, was the ice cream parlor, now the custard parlor. That big opening is where those parlor doors originally were. It's changed a lot. There's just like, to me, no resemblance to the way it used to be, except for that big opening. Here's another example. They couldn't use those cement steps that were in front of the parlor. So instead of tearing them out, they've kind of let them be and just sort of built a step framework around it in case they ever had a reason to, to restore it or make it look like that. Please. Oh, 4th of July. It says 1909. I'm starting to rethink that number, but I know it's a long time ago anyway. And this is the 4th of July band, I'm sure, because of the bunting, walking down the street in front of Schram Hall. And this, oop, oh, darn. Well, what I was going to show you is my picture of 4th of July 2011 that I took when I was standing across from Schram Hall, which I can do. It'll just take a second. looks a little different, but you can still recognize it. And then I would say to you, see if this will work. Leann. Thank you so much. I have to apologize a little bit because I kept trying to make it shorter, but I couldn't. It seemed like I needed to get it in. So if it was too long, I knew that. So. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. That should be safe and sound now. And really what we, at least the committee, the directors, the Historical Society, we're really looking forward to, like everything I said, like I'm sick of all that. I've been doing it for so long. But I am just dying to hear what some of you might remember or any questions you might have. We have many Schram people here. So we've got the last word at information here. I would think. So, yes, sir.
I have a question. It appears that the second and third photographs that you showed were from my collection. I'm not sure.
Maybe. Shirley sent me a copy of one of those.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, do I have to pay you?
My question is,
What?
we owe a debt of gratitude to Olga Olson, was it?
Olga Olson?
Who was the Bailey's Harbor photographer?
Well, I think so too. I've come across many pictures that she's done, and they're all quite good. Yeah, I think she did. And it was. Do you know where the McCardle House is in town? Maybe not. Huh? You do? Okay, that was the site of her studio, and it was eventually moved out to Kangaroo Lake, I believe.
Any idea how long she was in business?
I don't know. I know that I have pictures of my mother that she took. My mother was born in 1907, and I think she may have taken those maybe around 1920 or something like that. So that's something that I would love to know too. You know, if any of you are local people and have old ones laying around that you can date, you know, we can. I mean, one way to tell would be to figure out when the McCardles moved into that space, and that might have been when she left. Shirley?
The picture that I got from Mr. Hawkins, the nice picture that we like so well, that Ms. Olson did, had to be around 1919 or 1920, because my Aunt Lucille told me that at that time, you know, they were using that front room, that where the ice cream parlor is now was still a front room.
Okay.
And that's where August and Dorothy were both laid out.
Okay.
Now, it was about 1921 when the ice cream parlor opened, or 1922. So it had to be right about 1990,
1919.
around that time.
Leann,
Yes.
could she maybe come to the phone or to the microphone because we can't hear what she's saying?
Sure. Is it like that microphone isn't working over there for audience, or what do you
Mind
think?
just coming up to the front?
I'm thinking I'm okay, but nobody else can hear it.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, come up to the front. Why don't you come up, Shirley, and then maybe we can field some questions. Oh, that Arlene. Well, she doesn't want to take all the spotlight. She's had so much of it tonight, I think, right?
But I asked her.
I don't know what I'd say.
Say what?
Did Martha start the red geranium, and when did Martha die?
Martha died in 1963, within a month of Jack. And the red geranium, I'm sorry. The red geranium was started in the 70s by Mildred Armato. And Joni and Lanny Nelson rented that space to them. Yes.
Was there a bartender called Violet or Viola?
Well, there was a Viola Herbst, and she was the wife of the owner of Paul's Glass Bar, which is now the Cornerstone.
Right, but she was bartender at the Frontier, was she not?
I'd be surprised if she were. Oh, Joni's gone now, so we can't ask her. I don't, that wouldn't make sense because they'd be in direct competition. I don't know. So I don't think so. Oh, everybody, I didn't get to point out, our lovely server of brownies back here, Lynn, can you model your Frontier? I forgot to say it, I'm sorry.
She has a shirt on.
She has on the Frontier baseball shirt. So this is real authentic tonight, you see.
I should tell you, my name is Shirley Schram Schloss. I'm Leon's daughter. And then Arlene, raise your hand or stand, Arlene, is Lucille's daughter. We're the last two grandchildren. And my daughter Ann is at the back, so she's a great-grandchild. You can wave, Ann. There are other great-grandchildren in the county. I have cousins. There's the three Schram brothers right there. Martin Schram, Junior, well, he was a junior, wasn't he? Yeah, stand
We
up.
want to see you. We want to see
We
you.
have Jean, and we have Gordy, and we have Earl. A couple of things that I just wanted to mention that you might find interesting. Arlene and I both remember that the slot machines were still there in the 40s.
See?
And because we were children and we would go in and play them. The family always told me that they sent Lloyd through the University of Wisconsin on the earnings from the slot machine. So that's how he got there. And then when they did break up housekeeping, there were some buckets of old dimes that were rusty in the cellar under the ice cream parlor.
You know, you told me that, and
Right.
I guess I just,
So
Forgot to say
that was their bank, I think, when they talked about, there were many, many funny things that happened. We had wonderful times there. Arlene was asking me if I remembered that they did the Flying Dutchman. I don't know how many of you remember that. And we learned to schottisch and to dance. They also had roller skating on some Sundays, for those of you who remember that. Arlene, do you want to tell them that they used to hang the pigs in there when they slaughtered them?
I will come up and tell a story.
I'm going to just stand aside here.
I'll get over here.
Of course, Shirley and I got in free to everything.
Right.
Because, of course, the grandchildren. The roller skating was great. I loved it. It was, I think, Friday nights, and it was great fun. But one of the things I remember about the movies, besides the hard chairs, they always had like a news segment. And, of course, at the time, Uncle Lloyd Wasserbeck was playing with the Madison Badgers. Not expecting this at all, they told about, and here's Lloyd Wasserbeck, how they always called him that instead of Wasserbeck like we called it, but Wasserbeck making the touchdown of the day and so on, and no one expected it. The place went wild because here was the hometown boy in, you know, the theater. That wasn't a theater at all, but it was great, and I'll never forget it. I wasn't very old, but it was just special. And Uncle Lloyd was just a peach of a guy.
He was nice.
Yeah.
Just stay there.
Go. No, oh.
Go away. Look, go ahead.
First time I was ever in Bailey's Harbor, so I went to the Frontier, and the waiter told us a lot of things. We know the waiter that now he owns the Camp David. He was waiting in the night. But we also heard that there was a basement in there where during the Prohibition that they had parties and they were serving liquor. Is that true, or is that a good falsehood?
Jean Schram had some information. Did you want to tell them, Jean, about what happened during Prohibition?
Well,
It's been long enough that they're no longer liable.
I was born in 1925, so I'm one of the old ones, but I was a little young for that, you know. I remember when, was it Dorothy, the little one, she died, I was only 3 years old, but I can remember her funeral, that sort of thing. And as far as slot machines, in 1943, I was home on leave from the Army, and they had slot machines then, but when I got out, and then an ex-brother-in-law of mine, his dad had slot machines, and they had a sheriff's box, and they took
Use the mic, sir. People can hear you. Jean, we can't hear anything in the back. Would you please go up
See,
there?
we'll all be up here when we get done.
It'll be family.
Leann told me that Jean had told, I think, Mary Ann, some information that they had a still in the woods.
Oh, I think there were a number of them around here, because I know, I think some of, like my dad or my uncle, they kind of knew who did it, you know. And I said, I was just a kid then. And what did I say before that? About slot machines. See, they stayed in Door County as long as they dared, but at that time, I think the sheriff, they had a box that they took money to the sheriff, and that's why you could operate your machines. And yeah. So here I am, I'm 86 years old and still standing.
I don't think anything was done in any basement because nobody would want to, no, that was terrible. The only thing that was down there was pickles, and that grandma put up for the winter or summer or whatever you put, you know.
It made a good story.
Well, I made a good story, but there wasn't much down there, believe me. It was scary. And it was in the ice cream parlor. That's how you got in
Right, you
it.
got down there. Lucille said in her writings, the cellar used to be back off of the kitchen. And then when they built over all of that, they just had to get down underneath in the ice cream parlor. So that was, now Florian Kwiatkowski was here tonight. Is he still here? Where's Florian? Florian told me, because I asked him, I had heard that the horses were from the Kwiatkowski horses. He said that he felt they belonged to his father, and they kept them there at the barn. There were stable boys' quarters in that barn, because we used to play out there in the stable boys' quarters. That was always interesting. Here he comes.
Oh, I would like to say, too, I have the original pool table from when Grandma and Grandpa gave up having the pool table in there. We had it looked at, and it's before Brunswick. We got it from up in the attic, which I guess is the home quarters now.
Yes, it is.
The owners. But it's pretty old.
One thing that struck us funny is all the years that I was there, my father did not drink. I never saw Martha drink. I don't know, Jack may have. Lucille, maybe a drink once in a while socially when family was together. And they weren't drinkers. And my dad always used to say, well, we all saw everybody come in at 7 in the morning to get their drinks, so we never did. We didn't want to be like that. And Florian here, I have a picture over there I brought of Florian as an altar boy. So you need to look at that before you leave.
This is back in the old Catholic Church before the new one was built. But I want to thank you women, all of you. And the Shrams. The Shrams are always noticed as ball players. Leann, the best catcher Bailey's Harbor have ever had. Pitching with Gordy Brand.
And Gordy Brand is Leann's uncle.
Is that right? That's right, you're right. I gotta hang on this cane or I'll fall on my ass. But anyway, I happened to manage a team when Darryl and some of the Schram boys and myself played baseball. That was back in the early 70s when we took over the Florian Supper Club. I used to play ball with Ellison Bay a little bit, but we have Earl and some of the top Schram boys all the way through. I can't remember all the names because the head don't do it anymore. But that is part of the Shrams. Now, most of the discussion tonight was at the outside of the Warshabeck's building, the barns, and so on. So I am 92 years old. 80-some years have lived in Bailey's Harbor. This is my living here. People have followed me. My family is in the same business as some of it I was in. That's a couple of my ball players sitting right down there. Okay, so now we're going to go back into the bar, the Warshabeck's bar. I got two pair of glasses here, one here and one on the stage. If they don't work, then I'm going to Walmart and get some cheaters. I have to pay $300 a pair, you know, they don't damn. Okay, the bar and the beer cooler. The beer cooler was iced by ice from Kangaroo Lake. Big cakes of ice were cut out of Kangaroo Lake by an ice cutter called Barney Hayford. Now, Barney Hayford lived on the outside of Bailey's Harbor on the first corner of the house next to Jumbo Tischler. So he'd cut ice on Kangaroo Lake. He had an ice machine with a Model T engine on it, but a big saw, he cut the score of the ice. And my dad and a number of farmers would go with the hand saws and break the ice loose, and they were hauled into individual ice houses around here. Now, the ice was stored, now I'm running off my subject again. But I want to tell you how the ice was stored in what we call big buildings with sawdust, about a foot of sawdust to start the ice and a foot all around the sawdust, around the ice and to cover the ice. When they wanted ice, they'd shovel the sawdust off and chip out a hunk of ice that square. But anyway, that's how Warshabeck's kept their beer cool, because he had an ice house out in this big barn. That barn, what was that barn for? Years ago, people came to town with horses. They had to put a place for their horses. There were two places in town. One was the old Hendrickson Hotel, which is now the Florian II. It was burnt down in '72, but the Warshabeck was the main setting for the horses to come to town, because they had an ice cream parlor, they had a bar, they had a dance floor. Now, these big schooners used to come into Bailey's Harbor. I was just about 10 years old then. And of course, on Saturday night, Warshabeck always had a big dance. Now, ever hear of a hard time dance? Everybody come with the oldest, most shabbiest costume they could have. Oh, and dance and dance, and nobody had nothing but handshakes, nobody. Maybe 10 cents to pay for George Rankin's band out of Sturgeon Bay, or the Schneiders, or the Zocks had a bar, a couple of pieces of band. But damn it, the sailors would come to town, and all the young girls naturally would go to town. And there was a fight every Saturday night. And I mean a fight. So they had to get what we call bouncers. So you've seen a picture of Andrew Zock up here before. He was a big man, he had a fist as big as a horse hoof. And Jack Warshabeck was just out of the army, he was a tight crack. And of course my dad was no slouch. But he said, you did it. But he was a big Polak, so they were hired as the bouncers to take care of these sailors. I'm getting off the subject, I hope I ain't gonna, but these girls and I would start dancing, be a fight. So it'd end up in a bar room, and you know, they'd throw you right through the window, just like you see in the old West shows. So old August Zahn here, the blacksmith, said, I'll fix that. So what he done, he got some pipe about this big around, and he put across the windows. So if you want to get thrown through them bars, they have to throw you pretty hard. But what caused it? Moonshine. That was before the whiskey came around. It was moonshine. I can tell you today where all the stills were. Not kidding. The biggest share came out of Peninsula Center. But these guys would come to town with their bottle of moonshine and get hipped up, have a drink, have a drink. And of course, us kids would be down looking at them. Hey, Sonny, did you see where they hid that bottle? Oh, yeah, well, here's a dime. So you'd go in an old Model T, would they lift up the hood there, the guy had his bottle of moonshine hid. And they'd all have a swig, you know, and back. But that's one other thing. Okay, that's about the bar. But the men drink so much of this beer, mugs of beer came out with big handles, big foam on there. Honestly, God, the bartender had to scrape the foam off before he could drink it. Now, the men would get so many beer, where are they going to wee-wee? That little shed you see on the side of the north of the building, that little building yet, that was for the men's relief station. I don't know if I should talk about that or not, but darn it, it comes in my mind. There was an eaves trough in there. And that eaves trough drained down into a wooden bucket out there with gravel in it. And that little building is still there. There's an outbuilding you see on the north side. It's still there.
Florian, I've got a request for you.
Yeah.
Do you think sometime, if we can fit it in, maybe we can interview you for a little oral history for Bailey's Harbor?
I'd love it.
Yeah.
If I do,
I think that'd be a great idea, don't you?
you know, I got a whole list here to talk about how they used to bring the boxing matches down there, the old Oliver machineries from downtown, 100 different things to talk about. But I want to go along with you because it gets on and on and on. But if I live that long.
You will. Thanks so much, Florian. There's nothing like eyewitness accounts.
There's nothing like the Schram.
And thanks for making that little list of stuff. That was really sweet of you. Thank you. Is there anybody else that? Be careful of the cord. Good. Is there any other? Oh, Lauren, yes.
When you were talking about those horses back there before,
Yeah.
my dad used to tell me that a guy by the name of Walt Kinsella had horses back there.
Walt Kinsella.
When they were building the Maxwell and Graves.
Oh, when they were building Maxwell and Grace, he kept horses
All
there?
that with teams, horses.
Uh-huh.
Buck and a quarter a day for a man and a team in a slush bucket.
Oh, boy.
Walt Kinsella had one black mare. He had a way of talking. I don't know if I never met the man, but my dad always said that he had one black mare. He said, that black mare can fetch him. That was his favorite saying.
Wow.
I don't know if anybody
That's
else
interesting.
knows.
Now, you indicated, did you know that, Lynn? Didn't you just say that you knew him? No, you didn't? Okay, I guess I misread. Yeah. So do you think, Lauren, that maybe where they had those horses like all in that circle?
I don't know if those were his or not, but he used to keep them in that barn.
I'm in the wrong place or something is. Did I move that? I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, why don't you do that? And then we'll just wrap it up. Okay?
I wanted to say for those of you here who normally might not have been from here, one of the things you have to understand is that when all of the people in the Polish settlement, that they all intermarried. So when you had Martha, who was a Ketchmark, and her mother was a Zach, her sister Lucy married a Gray, or Gray as they used to say, and then her other sister married a Chernetsky. In the Schram family, Aunt Tracy Schram married an Orsted. And, you know, before you were done, and that's why we laugh when you see all these people in front of the building, they're all related. And, you know, they had a good deal of fun together, and I think that's one of the things that we always saw when the dances, and I mean, they worked really hard, and they played really hard. The only thing I was going to add was about Lloyd Wasserbeck. He was the 19th in the draft for the Green Bay Packers in 1943. And then when he came home from the service, they wanted him again. But Chicago offered him $5,000, and the Packers only offered him $4,000. And in those days, that was a lot of money, so, you know, he didn't. But there's a lot of family history. Leann just did a wonderful, wonderful job.
Well,
And please look at the pictures. I have, my Aunt Lucille wrote something about everybody in the family. And she does have a lot of really funny happenings, like when she was afraid of the bathroom, the new bathroom at the school, she would run down at recess and go to the outhouse at Nelson's every day. So there's a lot of that in here, and you may want to just scan them and look at them.
I want to have that for our files. That's great. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. It was great for me getting to renew my acquaintance with Arlene. I haven't seen her, and I don't even want to say how many years, because that will tell you how old we are. And it's been wonderful getting to know Shirley. I hope you all enjoyed this. I think it's a real slice of the history of Bailey's Harbor. Oh, and what have you there?
This is for a drawing for the free DVD.
Ah.
So, and also tell them about our September presentation.
Oh, in September, we've had to change our schedule due to the first presenter not being able to travel. We are going to do a presentation in September called R&R in Bailey's Harbor, and it's going to feature resorts, restaurants, and reminiscences of people who worked there, who, you know, stayed there, and just to look at some of the great resorts in town, Max Welton, Gordon Lodge, Schmidt's Gazebos. We're looking forward to that. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And now, we had no ominous music, and now we have no drum roll. Yeah, I have, yes. Distinguished.
Yes.
Okay.
Bailey's Harbor Right, very distinguished.
Okay. This DVD will go to Patty Wood.
Patty Wood.
Patty? Well, tough luck. I mean, what can I do? I have nothing but her name.
Didn't have your long tenure. Oh, they got two of them here. I better take out one of these. Yeah, I want to get two of them.
Oh, Howard Williamson. Now, there was nothing going on here. All right. Well, again, I think that ends our meeting, and if I could please request, any of you who are able, if you could hang your chair up on the rack. It saves a lot of wear and tear on it.